Been a tumultuous week in Westminster, especially for the Prime Minister. Last week, he said Peter Mandelson continuously lied during the vetting process of him becoming ambassador in the US.
And this week, he's saying his former communications chief, a man called Matthew Doyle, did not give a full account of his actions before he was nominated for a peerage. After it emerged, he campaigned for Sean Morton, a Labour councillor, former Labour councillor, who was charged with possessing indecent images of children. Well, he's now been suspended from the Labour whip in his new role in the Lords.
Let's speak about it all to Gabriel Pogrund, who's the Whitehall Editor at the Sunday Times. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
This second issue that we're talking about, frame for us in your eyes how serious it would be if it was standalone and if we hadn't started the week with a moment where all of his MPs decided, after perhaps some delay, to back him and stand behind him?
It's a great question. I think that the real essence of the political trouble for Starmer in relation to this case is the symmetry between Matthew Doyle's ennoblement and Peter Mandelson's appointment as ambassador. I think the fact is, I happened to break the story last year. I asked Number 10 whether they were aware of I knew they were aware of the association between Doyle and his convicted paedophile because it had been brought to the attention of Downing Street. And I knew that and I reported that. But I asked them, well, what did you do? Who investigated? What questions were asked? And what evidence did you assemble before determining that it was appropriate to proceed with the peerage? To which answers there came very few from Number 10. As it happens, the person I was WhatsApping at the time, Tim Allen, Doyle's successor of Starmer's Director of Comms, who resigned last week, he was actually the author of this so-called investigation. He never mentioned that minor detail to me. But Downing Street basically, funnily enough, he told me he was at the football and was too busy to reply, but a colleague would pick up. They too didn't divulge the minor detail that the comms team, and by the way, a political appointment and a new Labour veteran, had investigated Doyle, former member of the comms team, a political appointment, and also an erstwhile member of Tony Blair's Downing Street operation. So the whole thing stank, but it was only now, because of the political trouble that Starmer faces and the Mandelson issue, that they've realised they're very sorry indeed.
Just to say that, Gabriel spearheaded the story. It was just one of the many scoops that you'll see in the Sunday Times from Gabriel, and I'm really glad to have you on because, frankly, I have been struggling a bit with the timeline of all this because we've talked on this programme to, Labour ministers, and we've asked about the timeline for Matthew Doyle, and we've mentioned the front page of the Sunday Times, which your story was on there. And the defence has been like, oh, yeah, but the announcement came before that, we didn't know about it. But I guess the key thing is they didn't sign off, they didn't rubber stamp the announcement until after the front page of the Sunday Times, when you made the association clear, which I guess is what I'm slightly struggling with here, right?
That's right. I suppose just to offer a very abbreviated version of the chronology, in early December it was announced that Doyle was going to get this peerage. Days later, on the sidelines of a Scottish Labour gala fundraiser, McSweeney was directly warned about, Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's ex-chief of staff, was warned about this matter by the General Secretary of Scottish Labour. Jill Cuthbertson, who's now succeeded McSweeney, was also told about it. That prompted this so-called investigation. Then came our front page. And then there was a weeks-long period after the... I'm not trying to be too facetious, but I can't quite call it an investigation. Whatever this internal exercise was, you have the internal exercise, the Sunday Times story. There are then weeks before the letters patent are sealed. This is one of these slightly abstruse bits of paperwork at the intersection of government and monarchy. Essentially, it's the document which gives effect to the peerage. The clerks of the House of Commons have now said that it was always possible for Downing Street to contact the royal household and say, we don't wish for this document to be issued. We'd like to press pause, send it back to vetting. That didn't happen. And I think therein lies a decision, or at least indecision, that matters.
Yeah, there was an opportunity.
But bring it back to us then for the actual, whether it should or shouldn't, the actual pressure this puts on the Prime Minister.
Well, in straightforward terms, why is this so toxic for him? Well, firstly, as you outlined at the outset, Starmer's attempting to condemn the last few weeks of controversy to the rearview mirror. He's refreshed his Downing Street team. He's attempting to reset. He's got a by-election coming up. At the Women's Parliamentary Labour Party meeting last night, one MP complained that on the doorstep she was being told that Labour was the party of paedo-protectors. So, you know, Starmer needs more controversy about his judgment in relation to alleged paedophile protectors, like he needs a hole in the head. It's bad news for him. It also brings the story back into Downing Street and back into those questions of his judgment. Obviously, Starmer, presents himself as a man of unimpeachable, not just integrity, but of forensic judgment. I think the problem here is that, you know, it's just another story which poses significant questions of him, and also because of the weird way our constitution works, it's bloody difficult to remove a peer from the House of Lords. So you've got this weird mismatch between the government's stated position, which seems to be that they would like Doyle to be stripped of the peerage, but then the procedure and the investigation, and like the Mandelson thing, I think it will rumble on. And I think that is the problem with these stories, when you don't have a straightforward position. And by the way, you didn't need a periscope to see around this particular corner last December, but when they fail to address it and all the questions start mounting, it becomes quite difficult to get yourself out of that bind.
Thanks very much. It's been great to have you on.
Thank
It really
you.
has. Thank you, Gabriel.